The automated bureaucracy of the Xenoc Imperium did not anticipate resistance when they targeted Earth. Utilizing their crowning military achievement, the automated deployment of X-99 gaseous toxins, they watched from orbit as the planet's skies shifted into a heavy, glowing neon purple hue. The compound was an engineered masterpiece, designed to instantly destabilize cellular membranes and dissolve the respiratory linings of any known species across the galactic spur. High Inquisitor Vale stood before the bridge console of the Imperial flagship, staring at the telemetry screens that confirmed a 100% atmospheric saturation rate. To the Imperium, the math was absolute. The soft-skinned, bipedal inhabitants of Earth were already extinct, their cities transformed into silent, uncontested monuments to Imperial dominance. For cycles, this protocol had cleared entire sectors with cold, mathematical precision, leaving pristine infrastructure behind for Imperial exploitation without a single drop of soldier blood being spilled. The algorithms had checked every standard variable, scanning the planet's diameter, water distribution, and technological baseline, concluding that a standard atmospheric purge would achieve total compliance within 72 planetary rotations. Vale turned away from the viewing screen, completely satisfied that another world had been cleanly added to the Imperium's expanding stellar ledger. The bureaucratic wheels spun forward, logging the planet as a successfully pacified asset, ready for immediate resource extraction and colonial deployment. Millions of tons of atmospheric cedars drifted silently through the upper stratosphere, continuously pumping out the thick, heavy compound that covered the entire globe in a beautiful but deadly blanket of violet mist. No distress calls were detected, no military counters were launched, and the entire planet seemed to sink into a profound, undisturbed silence that perfectly aligned with the predictive data models of the High Command. 3 months after the initial seeding, an elite tactical reconnaissance squad dropped into the ruins of a massive coastal metropolis. The atmosphere was thick, a dense violet fog that clung heavily to the glass facades of abandoned skyscrapers. Sealed safely inside their specialized, triple-filtered mechanized environmental suits, the scouts monitored their internal sensors with growing comfort. The external toxicity levels registered at a staggering 200% past the lethal baseline for any organic life form, a concentration high enough to slowly corrode baseline titanium alloy over extended exposure. The squad leader, Commander Jax, tracked the eerie quiet, confident that their assignment was a mere formality to clear the path for the primary mining fleets. Street lights flickered uselessly through the haze, casting long, distorted shadows across cracked pavements covered in a fine purple dust. The air pressure inside the suits hummed reassuringly, a reminder of the vast technological gulf between the conquerors and the world they had supposedly silenced. Every step taken by the armored squad was recorded and broadcasted back to the High Command, serving as a textbook demonstration of a successful planetary reclamation effort. The visual feeds showed empty vehicles, silent plazas, and overgrown parks, all bathed in the surreal, uniform glow of the ambient gaseous compound. There were no signs of structural damage, for the X-99 toxin was meticulously designed to spare physical property while turning biological targets into inert organic matter. Jax noted the absolute lack of movement on his motion tracking array, reporting back to the flagship that the zone was completely sanitized and ready for the first wave of colonial terraforming units to establish their primary outposts. The rhythmic crunch of alien boots against cracked asphalt was suddenly interrupted by an anomalous audio spike. Jax signaled his squad to halt, their forward-facing optical visors scanning through the dense purple haze. Emerging from the fog was a lone silhouette, walking down the center of the avenue with an unhurried, relaxed stride. As the figure drew closer, the scouts' tactical displays began to glitch, struggling to process the visual data. The creature was a young human male, completely devoid of an environmental suit, respirator, or chemical shielding. He wore nothing more than casual synthetic fibers and small audio transmitting nodes plugged into his ears, seemingly oblivious to the ambient apocalypse surrounding him. His posture lacked the frantic, desperate energy of a survivor. Instead, he walked with the casual confidence of someone taking a stroll on a quiet morning. The internal diagnostics of the alien suits began to chime in alarm. unable to reconcile the presence of an unprotected biological entity moving through an atmosphere that should have melted its lungs within seconds. Jax felt a cold spike of unease ripple through his primary nervous system as the silhouette stepped fully into the dim light of a flickering storefront. The human appeared completely healthy, his skin vibrant, and his movements perfectly coordinated. He stopped briefly to look at a display window, completely ignoring the heavily armed extraterrestrial squad that had taken up aggressive defensive positions less than 50 yards away from him. Panic rippled through the communication channel as Jax ordered an immediate containment strike. A scout stepped forward, raising a high-velocity plasma restraint rifle and firing a binding mesh directly at the intruder. With a sudden, fluid shift in posture, the human sidestepped the projectile with remarkable kinetic agility. He pulled the audio nodes from his ears, lowered the collar of his jacket, and took a massive, deep breath of the concentrated purple fog. His chest expanded fully, holding the lethal vapor for several seconds before exhaling a steady stream of violet mist. He did not choke, his skin did not blister, and his eyes remained perfectly clear as he looked at the armored invaders with mild irritation. The sheer physical defiance of the act froze the squad in place, their training entirely unequipped for a scenario where their ultimate weapon was treated with complete indifference. The human wiped a smudge of purple dust from his sleeve, tilted his head, and regarded the heavily armored alien soldiers as if they were nothing more than an inconvenient obstruction on his path. He did not wave a weapon or shout an ancestral battle cry. His absolute calm was far more terrifying than any display of primitive aggression. He simply stood there in the thick of a deadly chemical cloud, breathing deeply and waiting to see what the intruders would do next. Before the tactical squad could adjust their defensive formations, the human closed the distance between them with terrifying velocity. He swung a heavy, unarmored leg forward, his boot connecting directly with the reinforced shin plating of the nearest scout. The impact generated a sharp, metallic snap as the alien's composite armor shattered under the sheer force of the blow, sending the scout collapsing into the debris. Realizing their conventional weapons and biological warfare were entirely useless against a creature that inhaled pure destruction, Jax ordered an immediate emergency extraction. The surviving scouts scrambled back toward their atmospheric dropship, fleeing toward the upper orbit while leaving behind a trail of absolute confusion. The human did not pursue them, he merely watched their hasty retreat with a look of calm, detached curiosity before reinserting his audio nodes and continuing his walk down the avenue. The telemetry data sent back to the flagship was filled with erratic spikes, capturing the precise moment the squad's absolute certainty had shattered against the unyielding reality of human physiology. The drop ship cleared the cloud layer in record time, its pilot pushing the engines to their thermal limits to escape a world that was supposed to be a graveyard but had instead revealed something entirely unpredictable. Back aboard the Imperial flagship, High Inquisitor Vale watched the slow-motion playback of the reconnaissance footage in a state of profound shock. The Imperial Science Directorate ran continuous algorithmic checks on the X-99 canisters, verifying that the gas on the surface was functioning exactly as intended. Yet, the drone feeds told a completely contradictory story. Across the planet's surface, massive blast doors were sliding open. Instead of a desolate wasteland filled with casualties, thousands of humans were emerging from underground emergency shelters en masse. They weren't panicking, they were stretching their limbs, organizing outdoor recreational activities, and setting up industrial collection vats to trap the purple atmosphere. The data terminals flashed red across the command deck as the cold logic of the Imperium struggled to process a variable that defied thousands of cycles of established military science. Vale slammed his fist against the console, demanding answers from his panicked technicians, but the monitors offered no comfort, only endless live feeds of a population treating a deadly super toxin like an invigorating change in the weather. The central computer systems repeatedly checked for errors in the chemical composition, but every diagnostic confirmed that the gas on the surface was still fully active and hyper-lethal to any standard biological system in the known galaxy. As the days progressed, the planetary surveillance network captured increasingly bizarre behavioral patterns. The humans were not merely surviving the toxic environment, they were thriving in it. Long-range optical lenses tracked human workers performing heavy physical labor for extended shifts without showing signs of metabolic fatigue or muscular degradation. Sick bays and medical facilities across the globe were reported empty, as chronic respiratory ailments and cellular mutations among the populace seemed to vanish entirely under the influence of the violet fog. The very weapon designed to clear the planet for colonization had instead triggered a massive, global surge in human physical capability. Reports flooded the Imperial intelligence networks indicating that human manufacturing sectors were running at triple their previous capacity, utilizing the newly altered atmosphere to accelerate production lines. Heavy infrastructure projects that previously required automated machinery were now being handled by teams of humans moving with enhanced strength and speed, their bodies adapting to the alien catalyst with terrifying efficiency. Entire athletic stadiums were being repurposed as civilian training grounds, where the population seemed to be testing the new upper limits of their endurance, running faster and jumping higher than any baseline human history had ever recorded before the arrival of the fog. Driven by an intense need to correct this catastrophic administrative oversight, Vale ordered a full-scale physical intervention. A massive armada of heavily armed drop ships descended through the purple cloud layer, landing directly within the central plaza of the primary metropolis. Vale stepped onto the landing ramp, encased within a towering, heavily armored life support mech that hissed as it pressurized against the external atmosphere. Surrounding the landing zone was a dense crowd of human resistance fighters, completely unbothered by the suffocating fog, their postures relaxed and completely devoid of fear as they faced the Imperial vanguard. The heavy thud of the mech's hydraulic limbs echoed across the plaza, but the sound failed to intimidate the gathered crowd. Instead, the humans stood their ground, their eyes glowing with an unusual vitality under the purple sky, waiting silently for the alien commander to speak. Thousands of eyes locked onto the Imperial flagship's deployment ramp, tracking every move of the heavily reinforced shock troopers who scrambled out to form a defensive perimeter that suddenly felt incredibly fragile in the presence of an unaffected populace. Vale activated his external vocal translators, his voice booming across the plaza with a mixture of anger and hidden desperation. What evolutionary anomaly is your species? Our toxin disrupts cellular mitochondria at a molecular level. You should be reduced to basic organic compounds. Why do your bodies refuse to rot? A young human stepped forward from the front ranks, holding a modified industrial inhalation device filled with concentrated, pure purple liquid. He took a slow pull from the device, laughed quietly, and looked up at the towering alien warlord. You looked at our atmospheric data, but your cold algorithms missed the basic chemistry of our world, the human explained, his voice perfectly steady, carrying easily through the quiet plaza without the aid of amplification. The surrounding human fighters nodded in agreement, their calm expressions driving a deep sense of dread into the hearts of the listening alien officers. He lowered the device, letting the concentrated violet vapor swirl around his face like a protective aura, completely comfortable under the intense, unblinking scrutiny of the Imperial tactical sensors that were desperately trying to find a single biological vulnerability in his vitals. The human gestured to the glowing violet mist reflecting off his skin. Earth's atmosphere was already packed with one of the most volatile, corrosive, and reactive gases in the galaxy: oxygen. To almost every species in the Accord, oxygen is a slow poison that destroys cells over time, but our ancestors developed a brutal, high-energy metabolism just to process it. Your X-99 gas isn't a poison to us. It's a massive compound of highly bioavailable nitrogen and complex carbohydrates. Our oxygen-hardened systems don't reject it, we digest it. You didn't suffocate us, Inquisitor. You just handed us a limitless, clean super nutrient that cured our illnesses and supercharged our bodies. And now that we have all this extra energy, we're coming up to your ships to return the favor. The screen cuts to black as a low, thunderous roar of human thrusters ignites across the city, leaving the Imperium to realize they had accidentally unlocked the true potential of the galaxy's most dangerous persistence predators. The sudden, massive power signatures of thousands of orbital defense grids powering up flooded the Imperial flagship's sensors, rendering their tactical retreat impossible as the true masters of the Death World prepared to take the fight to the stars. Make sure to like and subscribe.